I need to start applying, right? Because I don't have any more capacity because I'm not my life hasn't changed enough. So my cup actually was able to get full. So I need to go build more capacity before I start trying to pour more stuff in.
This business podcast, the Two Business Guys Mastermind, uncovers for you secrets and share tips and tricks to entrepreneurship as they mastermind on how to have startup, operational, and overall business success so that you can go on to get better results. Enjoy. So, Rob, I am like up to here with advice, and one of my favorite people. I'm just full, and I'm done. Right? The advice is good, but that led me to start thinking about this. How much are your competitors not surprised anymore with what you talk about? Right? They've seen it, or your customers are saying, "I've had enough. I'm full." And what do we do about that? Now, we were talking off camera about to be middle class per, all that AI is telling us that is considered middle class. You only need X amount of dollars a day. And if you can make 1,000, 200, like you said. So, Rob, what happens? What do you do when you're just full?
Yeah. No, I think for me that's a really interesting thing. And I remember you were talking about it offline. Like there's been plenty of times where, like, I love to read. We always are going back and forth, riffing on books, and we're reading and all the rest of that. And I know there's times where I get to the point where I'm just like, I'm full, like you just said. And I remember when I was a beginning entrepreneur, I used to feel bad about that. I used to feel like, because, everybody tells the best CEOs read a book a week. And, this person read 350 books on leadership and this person read 500 books on, right? And everybody kind of gives you that, right? Number one, they don't tell you the time frame that they read those books under. It's something really important, right? Now, and they don't tell you how they did it, but also I heard Eric Thomas say something one time, and I thought it was really profound. And this is kind of my mantra about books, especially when I'm feeling full, like we just talked about. When I'm feeling full like that, my whole thing is that's God telling me that I need to start applying, right? Because I don't have any more capacity because I'm not my life hasn't changed enough. So my cup actually was able to get full. So I need to go build more capacity before I start trying to pour more stuff in. And Eric Thomas said it this way. He said, a lot of people are like, what is my New Year's resolution? What's the new, what could you recommend what books I need to read this year? And he said he stopped recommending books to people and he started telling people, go back and look at the books that you read last year and go apply something from one chapter of that book for a month. Get a result, and then apply another thing from that book for another month, and go apply one thing a month for 12 months. At the end of the year, you may not have read another book, but you will have been transformed by the books that you already read. And now your capacity for pouring into yourself, you'll know what you need to be reading because you'll have different problems because your capacity will grow. And I think for us, the big thing that I feel I want to say to you entrepreneurs out there listening to this is, right, that being full, don't feel like you're doing something wrong if you're getting full. Don't feel like you're not, working hard enough, you're not interested enough, you're not all the rest of that. If you're getting full, it's a transition time. It's letting you know there's some things that you need to focus on and get to work on, because as those transitions start to happen, the books that you need to read and the stuff that you need to be focused on, it comes and it'll be aligned. It'll hit you, and you know exactly what you need to be looking at. When you get to that full place, that means you need to be applying. That means you need to be transforming your circumstances by the stuff that you've already read. So that's my advice. I don't know, Randy, what do you think? How do you deal with being full?
It's emptying. I literally never forget when I read a proverb that says there's something to the effect of there's no room in a full glass. And for me, and I know when that time is, I'll start getting that feeling like I'm feeling right now. It's time to empty. So I said to you recently, and I'm looking at my board and telling you the things that I'm going to do to empty. and I empty a lot, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
I says, okay, that means I need to increase my workshops. I need to increase my lives. I did 3 lives in 4 days. I went on a YouTube live, 3 lives in 4 days, and I was tired afterwards, as if I had a physical workout,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's when I know it's like, oh, I was able to take all that I've been learning and all that kind of stuff and empty. Now,
Mm-hmm.
around that, I've got a workshop that's coming up. It's called Stop Learning and Start Earning. And then
Mm-hmm.
it delivers on that by saying, here's what you need to do. You now,
Mm-hmm.
of course, I'm pouring into them, but I'm saying to people within even in the workshop, apply. So I'm going to be doing
Mm-hmm.
application moments right in. So you don't just get full. So that right in, you're applying. In other words, you're emptying. I just told you this. Now let's go
Mm-hmm.
do it. Pull out your phone.
Mm-hmm.
Let's do
Mm-hmm.
this. Pull out your laptop. Let's do this. So that it's coming in and you're putting it into play right away. So that's what I do is increase the amount of emptying that I do now. I try to wrap around that the monetization opportunities, right? And now don't get me wrong, I give a lot away, right? But
Mm-hmm.
then I ask myself a question. For example, I says, okay, from what I just gave away, can I gather some testimonials that'll then help me earn down the road?
Yep.
Are y'all hearing this?
That,
There
yeah,
are
that's
those times
powerful.
where you give, but then
Yeah.
you have a monetization component. This is Rob.
Yep.
Rob and I teach you this stuff all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree 100%. And I think the big thing that people struggle with is, right, or at least here's one of the things that I struggle with. I don't know if you all listen out there, drop in the comments or something if there's something that you struggle with. But something that I've dealt with a lot is I know the free thing that I'm going to give away, but then how do I figure out what the next thing is, what the thing I'm gonna have people pay for? And I heard a couple of different people. I know Alex Hormozy was one of the people I heard say this. I think I heard Myron Golden say it on his podcast as well. And it was simplify that question. The thing that you want to do is you want to go to whatever it is you gave somebody as a freebie, and you want to say, what's the next thing that they need to get what they want?
Mhm.
Simple is that. It's they got this, they're at this level. If they're right here, what's the next thing that they need? And how do I build something like that? So that they know that I've given them value. They know that it works. I've taken them to a certain place. And so now I think about the next thing they're going to need. It's kind of like when you go think about it, restaurants, what do they always ask you at the end of the meal? Would you like anything for dessert?
I'm full. Eat dessert
Right
first.
now you may be full, but a lot of times people are like, yeah, let me see what you right. That's the whole deal. They get you, they figure out what do you need after, right? I think Amazon is amazing at this. If you ever right, you go on your Amazon account and you're on there and it's like, here's what I want. They're like, well, these are normally bought together. Or people who bought like you bought this, this, and this, or bought this thing. Like they already are priming your mind for what you're going to need after you get the thing. It's already a foregone conclusion that you're going to love the thing that you get. So they're already on to, hey, you're probably going to need this. Right.
Yeah.
And so I think that's something that for those of you all who are struggling with that, just think about what's the thing that they're going to need. And it could be something simple, right? It doesn't have to be elaborate. It doesn't have to be your full major, right? Big ticket purchase. And then the back end is all, no, it can just be the next thing. It can be the next worksheet, the next book, the next webinar series or whatever it is. It could be just that next thing. And that I think for me has been really helpful in streamlining my creative process. Because Randy, you remember, especially when I first started, years ago, I was doing things all over the place. And a lot of it wasn't connected because I was thinking about where people needed down the road 2, 4, 5 steps later, instead of here's where I know I can take them. Here's the next thing that they're going to need.
Yeah. And you see that transition, everybody, is oftentimes, and Rob and I talk about this a lot, is when Rob started, he was like, I'm gonna build a big business, right? Well, in building a big business, and there's nothing wrong with what I'm getting ready to say next, y'all. You think big. You think
Mm-hmm.
in leaps and bounds, which
Mm-hmm.
now
Mm-hmm.
we've talked about. Sometimes you got to do that. You can't come into a conversation. If you've seen some of our other videos, you can't come into a conversation thinking, with a poor mindset, if you will, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But there is value in saying, how about $200 a day? How about $100 a day? Right? If you can make now, and I want us to kind of transition into this when we think
Yeah,
about
yeah.
um the what is considered a middle class
Mhm.
business,
Right.
right? What
Yeah.
is considered a middle class business? Now we looked at income, and then Rob's going to break. I'm not a guy that's going to do like Sean Puri says, do math in public. I'm not going to do that because I'll be wrong. And my sons, call me up and say, what's that math is wrong. But uh, but what I want to think about is in creating this middle class business,
Hmm,
right?
hmm.
Then there are levels of what that
Yeah,
might look like. And then what
yeah.
we can do is start working backward. I'll help you with that part. Rob's going to do the math in public, and if he's wrong, just put it in the comment, be like, that math don't work. But
That math ain't math.
let's talk about that. I love that. Let's talk a little bit about that when we're talking about what that might look like. And then
Yeah.
we'll go out and then get into the what would it look like to get $100 dollars a day, $200 a day, 300 and 1,000.
Right. Yeah, no, I like that because Randy, you're exactly right. Remember, we were talking about Robert Kiyosaki. Um, and the book is, for those of you all who want to go look at it, is Cash Flow Quadrant. And Robert Kiyosaki talks about there's four different quadrants, right? He creates this little X with four different quadrants. And on the left side of the matrix, you've got people who have employment as the way that they get income into their balance sheet or into their P&L, right? And then small business as the way they get income into their P&L. And what he basically talks about is a small business owner still has a job. They just have a higher paying job. So you think about lawyers, you think about doctors, think about plumbers, electricians, construction workers, those types of people
Mhm.
that are earning
Mhm.
high salaries, even hedge fund managers, right? If you want to go to Wall Street, things like that, right? You can be making millions of dollars a year, but you are still either an employee or a small business owner. And the key thing that he talked about there was, right, like that is an option. But then there's this right side of the quadrant where you have big business owners and investors. And the big business owners own a system that prints money, and the investors have the best system in the world where their money goes and gets them money, right? So they send money out. I remember I was listening to Kevin O'Leary, who was one of the sharks on Shark Tank. He was like, I think of my money as soldiers, and their whole job is to go out and capture more soldiers, to come and go out and capture more soldiers, go
I
out and capture
loved
more
hearing
soldiers.
that. I loved hearing
Right.
that.
And so one of the things that Randy and I have always talked about is from the moment I thought about starting a business, I was always on the B side. I was always trying to build a big business, something that is going to be a system that eventually grows and changes things. That's just where I feel like my calling is and my mission was. That's where I've always been. But one of the interesting things about it is because of that bias, that unconscious bias that I had towards big business, I didn't pay as much attention to how you can replace a job, working for somebody else type of job with a business and be relatively comfortable, take care of your
Yes.
family, do the things you need to do. And so we were talking
Yes.
about the numbers, right? One of the things that we looked at was I saw an article the other day. It said something like middle class is now 136K. And when we looked at the numbers, right, we looked it up. It's basically a range. It's like 60K to like 200K.
Mhm.
But if you take the middle of that range, it's somewhere around 130,000, right? But the beauty of it, even if we go down to the bottom and we say 60K, right? 60K is basically about $5,000 a month,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
So you're making
Yeah.
5K a month. Now, the beauty of that, and I can do math in public because I got a calculator, and so it can do math for me. So 5,000 divided by 30, right? You're basically doing $167 a day. If
Okay.
you can make $167 a day, you can be in the middle class, right? Just off of your straight income revenues. Now, I know some of you all are thinking, but wait a minute. What
Not
about
living
taxes?
in
What about expenses?
California, not living in New
Right.
York
I live in
now.
California. All right. So good point. So let's round it up. Let's take 200 dollars a day as our starting point. $200 a day is probably what you need to be making if you want to be in a middle class business. Now, for some of you all, you're like, but $200 a day, how much is that? Whatever. I have clients, right, that don't have big, huge businesses. I have clients that run restaurants. I have clients that, run what's it called? Detailing shops and different things like that. They don't
Mhm.
make a ton of money, but they're clearing top line revenue much more than $200 a day, more close to $500 to $1,000 a day,
Mm-hmm.
right? Now, the beauty of that is if you're at $200 a day, you're down at that bottom end of the middle class spectrum. But check this out. Remember, we talked about that 136,000 a year. If you did 136,000 a year plus, if we put you in an upper tax bracket, so you like a 33% tax bracket, that's another $45,000 a year in taxes that you would have to pay. That takes you to 180K. So if your business was only at 50% profitability, so you got costs and all the rest of that type of stuff, this up there, but you're at 50% profitability, which means one out of every $2 that you bring in, you take home, and you pay taxes on that.
Mm-hmm.
Guess what? That's only $1,000 a day for you to be at that level. So I remember for me when I did this math, it was so eye-opening because, like again, I was blinded to where my business was
Mm-hmm.
in relation to right being able to provide for my family and take care of things and all the rest of that because I'm trying to build a big business. So till we hit 7 figures and even really 8 figures, I'm not thinking like it. I was stuck in not good enough mode.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But me and Randy were doing this math one time, and I was like, "Whoa, oh, right!" Like I knew I felt it, but I now realize it. Like for those of you all that want to move on this pathway and do the things that we do, you don't have to be making 600, 700, 800,000,
Right.
$1 million, right? Like
Right.
that's not what you have to do in order to live that type of lifestyle. Now, I'm not saying don't go for that, but $360,000 and you can be living middle class to upper middle class types of lifestyles. And I'm not even talking about the stuff that you can do with writing stuff off of taxes and all the rest of that. So you actually pay less in taxes. This is if you pay taxes like an employee and treated all that as earned income. With $360,000 a year, you could take home $136,000 a year. That's over
And
$10,000 a month.
and be considered right in there again. Now we know people that are living in California, and living in New York and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That's another conversation. But if you're living in
Yep.
that rural small town, and a lot of this research, everybody, can be done right over there at Pew Research, pewresearch.org. And another one was
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Investopedia. Yep.
Investopedia. So, check that stuff. But the point here is that you don't need a big business to be happy. And here's
Right.
something that you said earlier. Now we were talking off camera, and
Mm-hmm.
we talk about, hey, what's been going on in your life, right? Kind of a thing. And just on something you said earlier, and I said, so you're getting in shape to get in shape. And he's like, yes,
Yep.
I'm going
Yep.
to
Yep.
the therapy, the physical therapist
Mm-hmm.
to get my body ready to
Mm-hmm.
do this thing. Now, get
Yep.
this. So you just gonna jump into big business, or do you
Good.
need to get ready? This is what we're talking about, is creating these kinds of strategies that get you ready to then go into that
Mm-hmm.
other. Because I mean, there's mindset shifts at each one. Now, if you go in there and you says, you know what, next year is 2020, whatever, I'm gonna make $1 million, but you haven't made 10,000,
Mm-hmm.
you might just be setting yourself up for a
I,
kind
rem-
of failure. Now,
I
it's not to
remember
say,
watching Steve Harvey do that exact thing. He was like, his deal. Don't tell me about your $1 million idea. Tell me about how you made $1 10 times. Then tell me how you made $10 10 times.
yeah,
Then tell me about how you made $100 10 times. Then you can tell me about how you made $1,000 10 times. You tell me how you made $10,000 10 times, and you do that one more time. You tell me how you make $100,000 idea, and you go sell that 10 times. Now we can talk about your $1 million idea. And I think that
it's
for me,
velocity.
even I struggle with that same thing. I don't know if you dealt with this because you've always been a little bit wiser than me in this space, but I really struggled with the whole concept of sell this thing multiple times
Mhm.
and then build something bigger because you got this thing that works.
Rob, I can remember this. Even when I used to get allowance from my parents, and I remember, and my allowance, back in the, it was like $7 a week, and I had to do a couple, whatever, right? But even then, I was thinking, see now, if and we had a bank account. Mom would take me
Mm-hmm.
right up to the bank, walk me right up there, boom, 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 and she would say, hey, look, at least put something in. So I would put $2 in, spend the five,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then next thing I know, I end up with like $100. It's the
Mm-hmm.
velocity. That compound interest thing is real to the point
Mm-hmm.
where you got
Mm-hmm.
physicists speaking in on it, right?
Yes.
Where Einstein said, I don't know the even quote, but he said something
Mm-hmm.
about
Eighth wonder of the world.
the
Yep.
work eighth wonder of the world. So okay. So now when I started thinking about when I started in real estate and what I've been on one because I found one of my old videos, my last, and I call it the last flip. It's the last
Nice.
house that I did and flipped it, right? So anyway,
Mm-hmm.
and now that I'm in digital real estate, I was going to compare the two. Here's what I
Mm-hmm.
used to do. Here's what I'm doing now. But it was always about, can I create this now and then it spools off cash for me later, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
build
Mm-hmm.
something once and then allow it to spool money off. They call that what? Money in your sleep and all that kind.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like that
Yeah,
term.
making money in your
I don't
sleep.
like passive income. I want active. I remember heard
Yeah.
entrepreneurs say that. I want active income. So I don't want to be like
Uh-huh.
the comic that steals somebody's stuff. But anyway, I want active income. He said, I want my money out there working. I don't want it sleeping.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, no, I agree. I think who was it? Warren Buffett was basically said, right, like until you're making money in your sleep, like you're not really making money or something like that. Like it, I can't, I'm butchering the quote, but it was basically one of those things like until your money is working when you're not, you've got a problem.
Yeah.
And I think there's so many things, right? We were on this was maybe 2 years ago when we read Ryan Daniel Moran's book, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Um, and that book, I think, like it sowed some seeds, planted some seeds that are still germinating to this day. I think that we're gonna be applying some of the stuff that we talked about with that because I had to get back and go focus, like I told you all. But one of the things that I still remember from that book was his formula for $1 million. And he was like, all you have to have are four products, and correct me if I'm wrong, Randy. So
Yep.
it's four products that sell 25 sales a day.
Yep. And then
Yeah.
so um and then he
And the
says,
average cost of the product was like $20, I think.
yeah, I can't remember the math now, but yeah, it was a very, very
Yeah.
reasonable formula.
Right. Because it was four products doing 20 sales or 25 sales a day at $20 a sale, which is, was that 100 times 20? So that's $2,000 a day, right?
It's actually only like $730,000 a year, but yeah, times
Yeah.
365.
So it might be 25 and 25. But at the end of the day, or it might be 30 and 25. At the end of the day, it wasn't a lot of sales. It was less than 50 sales a day
Mm-hmm.
when he did the math. And the thing that was most interesting to me was it was like he was like, here's how you break it down. First, make one sale a day. And then get to the point where you're making two sales a day. Right. And I
Yep.
think that so much of that, one of the biggest things that changed in my business was when I focused on here's the thing that we're doing, and we're doing this right here until we get good at doing this. And every time I've kind of gotten off out of alignment or off schedule or whatever, that's what we kind of center back to. We're working on it right now. This quarter, we're working on, we have to make this many sales. This is our goal. This is how many sales calls we need to have. This is how many leads we need to have. And we got it all broken out so that my team is all focused on this one thing. And then as we go through and hit that, then we can start ramping up other things. But until we hit that, it's like, no, what's this?
Yeah.
Is this working? How are we doing this? And I think so many times as entrepreneurs, I know my experience was I felt like that focusing on one thing wasn't doing enough. And I
We
don't know,
all we
Randy,
all fall into that trap. And I'm gonna tell you, my missive is and I remember this, and why I do a lot is that's the job that I do. Learn a
mm-hmm,
lot so I can teach a lot, right? So I can get
mm-hmm,
to that J. Abraham status fast. This is what I figured
mm-hmm,
out is I says, if I'm gonna get 10,000 hours in, then I should probably get 10,000 hours in doing a lot of different things. Now, from an
mm-hmm,
effectiveness standpoint, oh my gosh, that can drive you bananas. And I never wanted to be where whatever I was learning became like VHS tape. I always want it to be music. In other words, the medium could change. So I'm always learning a new medium. But
Mm-hmm.
then, and when I formed Our Bridge Business Institute, it was like we learn to teach. We
Mm-hmm.
learn, we try, we show you, right? And then we teach it
Mm-hmm.
out. So it was
Mm-hmm.
about creating an environment where I guess I can use a little bit of that, ADD magic for the benefit of people that I'll be talking to. So I can
I
get
love
better faster. That was what it
it.
was for me. Now, when you
Mm-hmm.
look at
Mm-hmm.
all the people that are saying, hey, but if you just focus on, I get it.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of truth to that. And you will learn what thing works best for you. Then you can do all in on that and then teach a variety of things so you can keep the freshness and flavor and all that. So for me, like I say, when I'm doing the workshops, webinars, all this kind of stuff, and I'm saying, I literally did an inventory of different videos that I haven't ever released or some that were on YouTube. And I was like, oh my gosh, I had no idea that I had that much material. Now package it in an organized fashion, right? And now this gets to what will keep you probably from burning out people is you organize it in a way that people can apply it so that they can get the transformation. Literally.
That
Uh,
part.
and that's what I think Rory Vaden says. He says people want, this is what they want. They want organization. Okay? Because we can go on YouTube and learn anything. Right?
Mm-hmm.
I was on there learning how some JavaScript and all that kind of stuff. He says we want organization, we
Mm-hmm.
want application, and we really want to get to the transformation.
Yep.
Right? Otherwise, like Rob's got a workshop coming up in tomorrow, depending on when you hear this, and it's talking about chaos. Otherwise, you have
Mm-hmm.
chaos. But then how do you corral that chaos in?
And
How do you,
that's exactly it.
how do you
It's
corral
about
that in?
those three. Yep. It's about that literally. And I love that actually writing it down because I heard you say it before. And in
Yeah.
case y'all don't know, like we learn on here from each other. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's what I wanted to remember.
Right. I've been putting it on everything. I've been
Mm-hmm.
literally in my copy on my pages. On one, I'm looking at it right now. On one of my workshops, I says we are creating this workshop in an I said it like this. We're organizing this workshop so that it puts you in a position to apply what you learn so that you can get the transformation in your business that you
There we
want
go.
faster. I use the
There we go.
words that are what people are in their mind saying, is this going to be all over the place or is it organized? And I'm just telling them it's going to be
Yep.
organized. I brought it all together, y'all. So if I'm going
Yep.
out there and I'm pulling in all these pieces and all that stuff, let me do that heavy lift. But when it
Mm-hmm.
comes to you, it's organized so that you can apply it so that you can get your transformation. That's
I
it.
love it. No, that's perfect because I talk a lot about informational education versus transformational education. And I think that key thing that you talked about there, how do we set things up so that they're organized, so that they're applicable, and then so that they are transformative? And so, kind of to wrap up this whole conversation, I think when you are at that point where you feel full, you have to ask yourself those questions. Do I need to organize this information that
Mhm.
is swirling around in my head?
Mhm.
Oftentimes, that's not where I find people are stuck. Where I find people are stuck oftentimes is do I need to apply this
Mhm.
information that's in my head so that you can get the transformation, right? What was it? Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill.
Mhm.
Napoleon Hill said, knowledge is not power, knowledge is potential power.
Mhm.
Applied knowledge is actual power. And so I guess my thing to you all of you masterminders out there, is to look at the stuff that you did in 2023. Look at all the things that you learned in the last year. And as we go forward, the big key, depending on when you listen to this, stuff you did last year, last month, whatever in the past, the big thing as you go forward is this: what am I applying and what am I getting transformational results from?
Mhm. Mhm.
And if the answer to the one is nothing, then you can understand why the answer to the second one will be nothing. All right. And so I think that's the big thing as you go out. And if you're getting that feeling from your clients that they're kind of full, that they're not really hearing, Start challenging your clients to apply. Start challenging your clients to give you their stories of transformation. Start highlighting stories of transformation. Start highlighting stories of application, right?
That's
And
excellent.
see how that changes your business.
Excellent advice, everybody. So now this is what we ask you. Our channel is is poised to grow. We want you to be a part of that growth. We need you to be a part of that growth. So we want you to comment. We want you to subscribe if you haven't already. And then we want you to share it, because I want you to be able to pull out pieces and says right there at the 8-minute mark is where they did this, and this is how that may be the hero to somebody else. By organizing what we've put together and help sending it to somebody else so that they can apply it, so they can get your transformation. That'll make you a hero. You just pull it all together. You just curate it. Says
There
these
you go.
guys are dope. You want to listen to them. All right, that's what we got for you, everybody. We'll talk to you on the next one.
Have a good one, everybody.
Peace.